Greetings Ranger fans, Jake here for a deeper look at the world of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers once and always. But first, a rapid run through history lesson. Strap in, this is gonna be a long one. Let's kick off the counter. It's morphin' time! Okay, so two Nasada astronauts release Rita Repulsa and her minions from a space dumpster after 10,000 years. She, Goldar, Finster, Squat, and Babu set up shop in the Bandora Palace on the moon, former home of the Bandoran monks, protectors of the Zeo Crystal, so Zordon of Eltar proceed banished to a time warp and now looks like a floating head in a jar. He has his robot Alpha 5 summon 5 teams to become Power Rangers to protect the Earth with shiny suits and giant robot dinosaurs that combine to form Megazord Power. These Angel Grove Juice Bar denizens are Jason, Zach, Kimberly, Trini, and Billy, a genius who invents communicators to tap them into the command center's teleportation systems, and a rad bug to fly them there for emergencies, but still needs Trini to overcome her fears to save him when he's too high. Rita has Finster create monsters for them to fight, but the teams rise to the occasion, and not just when her magic wand makes them grow. Summoning new power weapons to defeat Minotaur, Kim using her archery skills to defeat Snizzard and Terratoad, and Trini using her new praying mantis kung fu against a mantis monster. Plus occasionally running for magic vegetation to break spells like with Shell Shock's magic traffic light. But Rita recruits Tommy to be her own Green Ranger, but he switches sides, so she takes his powers, but he gets his powers back, so her boss Lord Zed takes his powers again, but after the Rangers get new Zords, he gets new powers as the White Ranger. Jason, Zach, and Trini leave for a peace conference, though that might be a cover story for them becoming Omega Rangers. And they get replaced by a Stone Canyon Ninja team of Rocky, Adam, and Aisha, but Rita marries Zed, and her brother Rito destroys the Zords, and the Rangers get new ninja powers from Ninja. Kim loses her power coin but can't replace it because, as she discovered when going back in time and leading the Wild West Rangers, duplicate powers are a no-no. Because too much pink energy is dangerous. So she goes to the Pan Global Games and gets replaced by Kat, who used to work for Rita as a cat, but then Rita's dad Mastervile shows up, turns back time, and they all need a replacement by the Alien Rangers of Aquitar. The Kid Rangers retrieve the Zeo Crystal and destroy the timeline, but then Rita and Zed's crew gets chased off by the Machine Empire. Since their ninja coins got dusted when they were kids, they use Zeo powers as the Zeo Rangers alongside Tanya, who swap places with Aisha during the timeline switch, and then the Gold Ranger shows up. He's Prince Trey of Triforia, but he gives his powers to Jason since Billy's body was damaged during Command Center explosion and even further damaged when messing with time, so he turns into an old man, but gets cured on Aquitar and stays for Cestria. Jason returns the gold powers, Rita and Zed return an RV to blow up the Machine Empire, and then Space Pirate Divatox shows up, kidnapping Space Wizard Largo to unleash Lava Demon Malagor, so it's time to shift into Turbo. Magic Keys give them new powers, but Rocky hurts his back with a spin kick, and is replaced by a kid named Justin. They're joined by the robotic Blue Centurion, and after Zordon and Alpha 5 return to Eltar and replaced by Demetria and Alpha 6 before the other 4 Rangers are also replaced by TJ, Cassie, Carlos, and Ashley. They're helped by the Phantom Ranger before he disappears, and Demetria and Blue Centurion leave to help Zordon and Eltar, which is being invaded by Dark Spectre. But Divatox destroys her power chamber before returning to space, so the Rangers chase her, leaving Justin behind, and teaming up with Space Ranger Andros to save Zordon. Dark Spectre unites all the villains to conquer the universe, but gets backstabbed by a super torpedo by his minion Darkonda, so Andros destroys the captured Zordon to unleash a Z-wave of good energy and save the universe. Bulk and Skull, former youth center bullies, turned Ranger Hunters, turned Junior Police Patrol Officers, turned Detectives, turned Monkeys, turned Invisible, turned Temps, turned Alien Hunters, depart for the new space colony Terra Venture with Professor Phenomenus, but Skull gets left behind, so only Bulk gets to meet the new Galaxy Rangers on his way to New World Marinoi. Don't worry, he'll be back. Lightspeed Rescue then creates new Power Rangers to defend Mariner Bay from demons, Time Force Rangers travel to Silver Hills from the future to capture mutant criminals, and Princess Shayla recruits the Wild Force Rangers to protect Turtle Go from the Orcs. But then the Machine Empire is back. So Wild Force Red Ranger Cole teams up with 9 other Red Rangers, including Jason, Orico, and Tommy, who's apparently been chilling at Bulk and Skull's new restaurant, Bulkmeyer's. And they fly up to the moon, the Astromech ship Mark II, with Alpha 7 to defeat the last generals and destroy Zed's little Zord, Serpentera. The Wind Ninja Rangers team up with Thunder Ninja Rangers to defeat Lothor's evil space ninjas, but now Tommy's back as a teacher with a PhD, and he recruits his students as the Dino Thunder Rangers to defeat his former boss Anton Mercer's alter ego Mesogod before he returns to Ranger retirement at Reefside. Fast forward 20 years to 2025. After the Terubian Empire destroys Sirius, Space Patrol Delta establishes its Ranger Academy on Earth protected from alien criminals, having its B Squad cadets replace Deterio's A Squad, and eventually being joined by Tommy and Kat's grown-up son JJ as the replacement Green Ranger after Bridge gets promoted to Blue and then Red. Now back to 2006, where the Power Rangers Mystic Force of Briarwood defeat Master Optimus's army with the help of Rita Repulsa, who was purified by the Z-Wave and became Mystic Mother. But then her son Thrax interrupts the Power Rangers Operation Overdrive in their quest to collect the 5 jewels of the Corona Aurora, uniting all their villains together and attacking their connection to the Morphin Grid, so Adam returns teaming up with Bridge from SPD, 3 other past Rangers, and Alpha 6 to help them restore both their powers and the Sentinel Knight that had initially captured Thrax. In another space dumpster. In Ocean Bluff, the Power Rangers Jungle Fury combat Daishi, while in another dimension, Dr. K creates the Power Rangers RPM to defend Corinth from Vengeance, an evil computer virus that she'd been forced to create that managed to conquer the whole planet before having a building dropped on him and getting trapped in a morpher. For now. Back in the main universe, Master Xandra and Snylok fight the Power Rangers Samurai, and later Super Samurai, while Bulk teaches Skull's son Spike to be a samurai himself for some reason, and Zordon's apparent pupil Gosei recruits the Power Rangers Megaforce to fight Emperor Mavro's alien armada, and then become the Power Rangers Super Megaforce, using Ranger Keys to become all the past Rangers I just mentioned, and a few I didn't. Then teaming up with all those Rangers for a legendary battle to defeat the armada, but in another dimension, the Power Rangers Dino Charge, and later Supercharge, fight Sludge's bounties until their mentor Keeper sends them back in time to undo everything and create modern Dino Zoos, while back in the main universe, Power Rangers Ninja Steel, and later Super Ninja Steel, defend the Ninja Nexus Nexus Prism from Galvanax and Matamodius, but also team up with 3 other Rangers from across dimensions using Time Force's transportal technology to rescue 7 other Rangers, including Rocky's Mighty Morphin Red, Cat is Turbo Bing for some reason, and Tommy using his new Master Morpher to access all of his past powers, except Turbo. They prevent Lord Draven from shattering the walls between worlds, but when Grid Battle Force experiments with Morphin Grid energy, they accidentally resurrect Vengeance as Evox, who fights the Power Rangers Beast Morphers, but then resurrects past villains from Dino Charge and Mighty Morphin, led by Goldar Maximus. So the new Rangers have to team up with all those Rangers, plus Dino Thunder, to redefeat them alongside Jason, whose power coin showed up in a random meteor, but then Dino Fury Red Ranger Zeta wakes up after 65 million years, recruiting a new team to join him in fighting the Sporks army of Void Knight and later Void Queen, but his friend Ion's also awakened by the Green Morphin Master, who is behind the legendary battle, the meteor, the power eggs from the Radbug intro, and a whole bunch of other stuff. To help fight a resurrected Lord Zed, who teams up with Evox's lackey Scrozzle to destroy their home planet Ravcon, but then they capture Zed, then Zato sacrifices himself to defeat the Sporks, but then he's brought back by the Morphin Masters because Zed's escaped, and then, on to season 30! And that's the end of the... I'm okay. Just 1 second. Okay. Not doing that again for a while. So, that's the end of our history lesson. Now let's take a deeper look. So, the Power Rangers timeline of the last 30 years has clearly been pretty complex. What with the multiple teams, multiple universes, multiple timelines, and that's not even getting into alternate continuities like the comics, movies, occasional video games, and possibly even some of the tabletop games in the works, which honestly feel like they could be a bit of a wild card depending on how those source books eventually play out. Oh, and Hyperforce. But when looking at it whole cloth, we do see recurring patterns of circling back to old characters, settings, and concepts. Despite dropping the Mighty Morphin moniker over 26 years ago, the franchise never really fully let go of its earliest incarnation, with references to those origins becoming basically the norm ever since the franchise was revived with Samurai in 2011. Wild to think that was 12 years ago now. 12 straight years of Go-Go Power Rangers theme songs. Wow. But in all that time, there are 3 core characters from the first season that have gone basically unmentioned. And keep in mind, we've had Tommy and Jason each return for multiple Celebration crossovers, one of which explicitly mentions Kimberly, whose actress appeared in all 3 feature films alongside Jason David Frank, and that's not even touching on all the supporting characters that have been referenced since then. Rita became Mystic Mother, Goldar was resurrected by Evox, Zordon's been name-dropped by Alpha 6 and Gosei, Ernie received a tribute character in Megaforce, and even the Morphin Masters, who appeared in a single flashback from a single episode, have now become major players in the most recent season. But Billy, Zach, and Trini essentially dropped off the face of the earth the moment that their characters were written out of the show. Actually, kind of literally in Billy's case. So it's fascinating to actually have the 30th anniversary special place so much focus on what are arguably our 3 forgotten heroes. Not forgotten by the fan base, of course, but seemingly forgotten by the series itself. Now for Trini, that makes a certain degree of sense, as Thuy Trang's tragic passing in 2001 made the subject of her character's fate a rather delicate one that I can absolutely understand writers wanting to steer clear of, and I will absolutely be circling back to her character later on. But first, I want to address the 2 Rangers who have been able to return. Starting with the one that had the longest tenure out of anyone on the original team. The one and only Mighty Morphin Blue Power Ranger, Billy Cranston. Billy was not only a major player in many of the plots of those early seasons, developing key devices like the communicators, the Radbug, the molecular decoders / portalcom, the Zeozords, and countless other day-saving inventions, but he was also integral to the Power Rangers universe as a whole, even managing to broker a peace accord between the Equations and Hydrocontaminators of Aquitar. And considering that these were literally creatures defined by their pollution of water on a water-based planet, that's really saying something. So his character is the one that has probably had the most fans theorizing over what he's been up to since his departure, and whether he's been behind any of the major developments in the Power Rangers universe behind the scenes. Most notably the proliferation of man-made Ranger powers since Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Though sadly we don't actually get any new insight on that side of things. Instead, he functions almost as a gateway character to the larger Power Rangers universe. We discover that his interstellar adventures didn't end with him settling on Aquitar with Cestria, as the special reveals that he has connections to other teams across the cosmos, including both the Astro Megaship and Terra Venture through the Emergency Bandora Protocol, as well as explicit mention of visiting Miranoi, which I'm still choosing to interpret as being in the RPM universe. You can't take this headcanon from me. The man was finding backdoors into other dimensions while still in high school. We're not going to pretend that this is outside the realm of possibilities here. But far more importantly, he connects this story to one of the most major events in Power Rangers history, Countdown to Destruction, and more specifically Zordon's sacrifice, which had likewise gone unmentioned for nearly 23 years before Dino Fury's old foes' reintroduction of Lord Zed made that sacrifice relevant again. Presumably brought up specifically with the impending 30th anniversary in mind, even if Once and Always itself had not actually been written. Come to think of it, how cool would it be if Hasbro's recommendation of reintroducing Lord Zed actually inspired the whole idea of Billy's inadvertent creation of Roborita through the attempted restoration of Zordon? That'd be a pretty neat bit of serendipity. This whole plotline is one of, if not the only case, of demonstrating how a character is impacted by major events of the franchise that took place after their departure, which simultaneously feels perfectly natural by virtue of how existing in that universe will of course have emotional consequences, and surprisingly innovative, considering how frequently the events of different seasons are treated as entirely separate from one another. And it also makes sense that the character of Billy would be the primary plot driver of this special, as he not only had the deepest connection to Zordon due to their long tenure together, and him having spent an entire season as the Power Chamber's chief technical support alongside Alpha 5, but also due to him having the greatest agency to act upon that connection. Which brings us to what is simultaneously the largest and least defined world-building contribution of Once and Always: Cranston Technologies. Much like Hartford Industries before it, we're not really clear on what Cranston Technologies is or does outside of acting as a front for funding a secret ranger base and allowing its frequently absent adventuring owner to develop a single sentimental invention, which in this case would be the Radbug 2 as opposed to a robotic teenage son. Unfortunately, unlike Hartford Industries, which was later revealed to have multiple subsidiaries in the form of Hartford Robotics and at least one movie studio, we really don't get larger insight into the full scope of Billy's new company, nor exactly where he got the capital to establish it. Although, based off of real-life companies run by space-obsessed tech nerds, we can probably assume that government subsidies played a pretty major role. Which brings us to our ranger returning from the longest absence to date, former Congressman Zachary Taylor. Despite being a far greater surprise, Zach's evolution is one that arguably has an even stronger foundation than Billy's development into a tech CEO, which I cannot emphasize enough is a career that is far more strongly correlated with one's connections to capital than it has anything to do with one's actual scientific acumen, because Zach had already taken several steps towards that specific vocation. The most obvious connection is the World Peace Conference that he, Trini, and Jason left to attend in Switzerland, marking their original departure from the series, but his interest in politics is also more directly explored in the Go-Go Power Rangers Back to School special issue from the Boom comic series, where it's revealed that his older brother Benjamin is actually a congressional aide to Senator Kamaku. And can we just take a moment to appreciate how rare it is that we actually get named governmental representatives in Power Rangers? At this point, the only ones that we've really had in the show have been Mayor Carrington, Mayor Daniels, and Congressman Zachary Taylor. Much like how Billy acts as a gateway character to the broader Power Rangers canon, Zach is able to function here in a role that actively builds out the civilian world of Power Rangers, with their close friendship acting to reinforce the inherently contradictory bridge between the fantastical and the mundane that has always been core to the franchise. The fact these two worlds are still able to coexist after 3 decades feels both naively charming and utterly fascinating. Because a big part of what makes the Power Rangers universe so interesting is not only seeing all the different ways it diverges from our own, but also all the little things that surprisingly manage to stay the same, even if something so simple as a basic governmental structure. And that gets you thinking about all the other seemingly mundane things within that world that we just never get to see. Like, this retroactively makes me want to see Zach running for class president back in high school. That would have made for a great Focus episode. Choices like this are what helps keep Power Rangers grounded, demonstrating that even when we're exploring far-flung reaches of the multiverse, there are still elements of our world that audiences can find both relatable and realistically aspirational, whether we're children looking up to community service-minded teenagers or adults engaging in national politics. This also serves to highlight the passage of time and how our priorities and perspectives shift as we get older. For example, in Power Rangers RPM, we had Colonel Truman acting in a governmental role, working to keep everyone safe inside the domed city of Corinth. But audiences were likely intended to connect with his son Scott, the Red Ranger, playing the role of a teenager struggling with the fact that his overprotective dad just refuses to let him go outside. But now, for this special, the audience is all grown up. We're the parents. And that connects us to our final Forgotten Ranger, Trini Kwan. If Billy connects us to the fantastical world of the Power Rangers universe, and Zach connects us to the mundane world that we all live in, then Trini serves to connect us to the inner emotional world, demonstrating that events within the series not only have impacts on broader plot lines and are supported by the more germane underpinnings of the setting, but also can have devastating emotional consequences as well, far beyond what we would normally see in the main series. We learn about Billy going on adventures and Zach having a career, but the only thing we actually learn about Trini is her home life. And while that may feel like she's getting the short end of the stick in terms of post-series development, it's important to recognize that her house is the only house we see. Her family is the only family we see. Every keepsake, every photo, every memento, they're all hers. It's like there's this entire world where she's at the center of it all, and she's not there. And so, even though we don't know what adventures she had, or what career she pursued, or even how she became a single mom to Min, the choice to prioritize the home that she had built for her family and the connections that she had with her loved ones highlights the fact that the most important element that's really missing here is Trini herself. Again, just as with Billy and Zach, we see how world building and character are intrinsically linked, as every character ultimately has multiple worlds they are naturally going to be a part of, and seeing which of those worlds the story chooses to focus on helps inform the audience of the priorities of that character and that story. And while we may naturally gravitate towards the wonder of Billy's world or the prestige of Zach's, ultimately, it's Trini's that is established to be most important. We never really find out much about Zach's life as a congressman, because whatever he had going on before pales in importance to acting as Min's guardian, which once again leans into the supplementary material of the comic books, where Trini and Zach's relationship is far more developed, as the peace conference is established as a cover story for them to become Omega Rangers, traveling the universe, becoming romantically intertwined, and even briefly caring for an alien baby together. Meanwhile, Billy, who has gone through all the work of developing this big company and command center and protocols, still relies upon his connections to Trini to save him from Robo-Rita, not once, but twice, proving that the most important world building of all is the world you build in your heart. Wow, that was corny. Now, obviously there are a lot of other elements to the world of Once and Always beyond these three characters, and I don't want you to think that in focusing upon these seemingly forgotten Rangers that I have myself also forgotten the other returning Rangers that are often forgotten in our collective nostalgia for Mighty Morphin: Kat, Rocky, Adam, and Aisha. These are characters that have all returned before, even if Aisha had only done so through Hyperforce and Kat and Rocky barely had any lines during their previous appearance in Dimensions in Danger. However, while Kat's dialogue about raising JJ does connect to the larger lore established by the Boom Studios graphic novel Soul of the Dragon, the Stone Canyon Trio are much more limited in terms of how much we really get to know about what they've been up to, with much of it being communicated through other means, specifically the costumes and setting. And hoo boy, do I have a lot to cover on that front. So make sure to join me next week for a deeper look at the production of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always. And if you'd like to share this week's rapid run-through, you can find it as a standalone clip over at Morphin Legacy's YouTube channel. Please like, share, subscribe to us both, ring the bell for future notifications, and until next time, farewell Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.